This is Kite Cutter TV with another presentation. We gotta talk about this. Okay, guys, a settlement has been reached in a lawsuit following a 2018 ICE raid of Bean Station meatpacking plant. The Southern Poverty Law Center said that officials with the plant agreed to pay workers at the plant more than $600,000 in unpaid wages. There's a doco on Netflix called After the Raid, which is about this particular raid that was the biggest in over 10 years. Most of these employees were illegal aliens that are being taken advantage of, but they shouldn't have been working in the U.S. anyway, so how they're even getting this payment in the first place puzzles me. But I'm glad to see these companies that perpetually employ illegal aliens at reduced rates over U.S. citizens pay a price and set a precedent so other people won't do it. Check this out.
Just into our newsroom, the Southern Poverty Law Center says a court settlement will force a Bean Station meatpacking plant to pay workers more than $500,000. ICE raided that plant, Southeastern Provision, in April of 2018. Dozens of workers were taken into custody for suspicion of being undocumented. The Southern Poverty Law Center says today the settlement over stolen wages confirms attorneys' suspicions that the plant was targeted due to labor exploitation, wage theft, and unsafe working conditions. The state hit that plant with thousands of dollars in fines, and its owners pleaded guilty last year to hiring undocumented workers. The Department of Labor filed the lawsuit to recover unpaid wages for those plant workers. The plant will pay them $600,000.
Okay, Craighead County Sheriff's Department renews ICE program. Craighead County is in Arkansas with just over 100,000 people, and the program that was renewed is a 287G program, which is a program that enhances the safety and security of communities by creating partnerships with state and local law enforcement agencies to identify and remove aliens who are subject to removal from the United States. I employ all you good patriots to find out about this program in your area and vote accordingly. Check this out.
In Craighead County, the Sheriff's Office has re-signed with Homeland Security to screen potential illegal immigrants. It's been 1 year since the county signed their first contract. Miranda Reynolds met with officials about how the program works.
That's correct. The Sheriff's Office will sign a second-year contract with Homeland Security. So far, they say things have gone well. The ICE program, or 287G program, works after a person is arrested for a crime. Once they've been brought to jail, their name is ran through the database system by 2 trained detention officers. This will check to see if they're a legal citizen, as well as if they have committed any crimes. If they aren't a legal citizen, ICE is notified. Chief Deputy Justin Rowland says the system has a large misconception of being used in the field by patrol deputies, when it's only used in the jail while inmates are booked.
This program is strictly an identification process of trying to identify these offenders who could be potentially dangerous.
When ICE becomes notified of the illegal alien, they will relocate the inmate. Rowland says they do not remain at the county jail for long. This new contract with ICE will last for an additional 12 months. Reporting in Jonesboro, Miranda Reynolds for Region 8 News.
Okay, Harvard MIT sued to block ICE rule on international students. As expected, colleges and universities pushed back Wednesday against the Trump administration's decision to make international students leave the country if they plan on taking classes entirely online this fall, with Harvard University and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology filing a lawsuit to try to block it, and others promising to work with the students to keep them on campus. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement notified colleges Monday that international students will be forced to leave the U.S. or transfer to another college if their schools operate entirely online this fall. New visas will not be issued to students at those schools, and others at universities offering a mix of online and in-person classes will be barred from taking all of their classes online. Check this out.
About these new guidelines from the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which force international students to leave the United States if their school only offers online classes this fall. Now we're learning that Harvard and MIT are suing the Department of Homeland Security and ICE over this action. Secretary Wolf, your reaction?
Sure. So what we did is we wanted to make sure as we went into the fall session that students and universities understood the rules of the road. What I think they don't understand is right now, under the regulation, international students can only take one online class. We have amended that. We've told them as much. We're going to move that up to 3 online classes. So we're giving them more flexibility. But at the core of this is they want students to still come here to the U.S. and take classes 100% online. And the student visa, Maria, as you know, is your presence is required here in the U.S. That's why you get the visa. If you're taking 100% of your classes online, your presence isn't required here in the U.S. to do that. So schools need to think hard about that. And again, our change is actually providing them more flexibility. Right now, they can only take 1 class online. We're giving them the opportunity to take up to 3 classes online.
Many of these students are frankly terrified right now. Immigration attorneys say this is devastating, but say there is a growing coalition ready to fight back.
It was sort of one of panic initially.
Louis Picard is a second-year PhD student in physics at Harvard. The Australian citizen has been living, working, and studying in Cambridge on an F1 visa for years. This has been his home, and the thought of having to suddenly leave because an institution may conduct courses online only in the fall is daunting. But Picard says this is beyond him personally.
The US would be somewhat cut off from the international academic community. I think it's really important to have this active exchange of people and of ideas between academic institutions around the world.
And everyone kind of needs to take a deep breath.
Carrie Doyle is an immigration attorney already in contact with legal colleagues and universities. She doesn't believe it's a coincidence that the announcement from ICE came the day before that of the Department of Education.
But I also think it's part of the general administration's goal to completely shut down immigration. And the non-immigrant visa bans did not include a student visa ban, so they had to get to the students somehow, and this seems like a convenient opportunity.
And as for Picard, he says this could affect graduate students far more than undergrads.
We live our whole lives here, and we're not just coming into the university for 1 semester and then going back home. I pay taxes here, and I was intending to live here solidly for at least another 4 more years.
So right now, experts are advising students to stay the course and contact your international student advisor. Reporting live in Cambridge in front of Harvard, Julie Lonchek, WCVB News Center 5.
Here's a Fox Business alert from the world of college sports. We've just received a new report that the Ivy League is canceling all of its fall sports for this year because of COVID concerns. This is from a CBS Sports reporter on Twitter. So that means no football in the Ivy League, soccer, cross country, whatever sport would be in the fall, they are off. And the league says that they will not entertain any kind of sports until January 1st of 2021. The Ivy League will see if other conferences follow. Now this.
At the core of this is they want students to still come here to the U.S. and take classes 100% online. And the student visa, Maria, as you know, is your presence is required here in the U.S. That's why you get the visa. If you're taking 100% of your classes online, your presence isn't required here in the U.S. to do that.
Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf responding to the petition from Harvard and MIT on ICE's new rule that international students will have to leave the United States if their college classes are completely online for the fall. Here now to discuss it, Judge Andrew Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst. Judge, always great to see you. First question, plain and simple, is it legal?
Well, it's an area of the law that's been untested, Jackie. So I don't know if what the government has done is legal. The statement made by Acting Secretary Wolf to our colleague Maria Bartiromo is a true and accurate statement. The visa is granted because their physical presence is required. But we've never had a situation like this where people have been here and participated in the life of a university, and suddenly that participation was terminated either by a pandemic or by the government's behavior. The lawsuit is a very interesting one. Had I been the lawyer for Harvard or MIT, I would have brought the lawsuit in behalf of the students, not in behalf of the university, because it is the students who are the ones that are truly suffering. The university claims that it is suing in their behalf. but the federal courts have a requirement of standing, meaning the only person who can file a complaint and invoke the jurisdiction of a federal court is a person whose ox has actually been gored, who actually is being harmed by what the government has done. Harvard and MIT have been harmed by the pandemic. They've not been harmed by the government. But these students who've been told, go home and stay home, they have been harmed by the government. They have a cause of action that is worthy of judicial review.
All right, Judge, let me read you a quote from Harvard explaining this a little further. Quote, the order came down without notice. Its cruelty surpassed only by its recklessness. It appears that it was designed purposefully to place pressure on colleges and universities to open their on-campus classrooms for in-person instruction this fall without regard to concerns for the health and safety of students, instructors, and others. Obviously, Judge, President Trump is pushing for schools to reopen in the fall. That is part of reopening the economy. So it seems here that Harvard is really sort of honing in on that, saying that, you know, the administration is placing this pressure through this action. Your thoughts?
That's actually a very good argument, because when you change an administrative regulation, or when you invoke a new regulation that changes somebody's status, you have to give notice. You have to give 30 days notice, and that's time for Congress to get involved, and it's time for the human beings affected by this to challenge it or to make plans to comply with it. The Trump administration didn't give any notice, and this is not just to Harvard and MIT. You talked a few minutes ago about the whole Ivy League canceling sports this fall. It would apply to all universities in the United States. None of them had any notice. So the Administrative Procedures Act, which is a federal statute that governs when and how administrative agencies like DHS can promulgate a new rule or invoke an old one, requires 30 days notice, which the Secretary did not give. That is a reason, a valid reason for interfering with it. But still, the people suing have to be the one who are actually harmed by this, which means it ought to be one or more students as opposed to one or more universities.
So there's that issue. The students should be bringing the petition forward, but also at the same time, you're talking about notice. There's a third issue here. I mean, you know, you could argue there is a public interest in keeping international students at home. We're all social distancing and trying to stay away from each other. Our businesses aren't reopening to try to keep, you know, certain parts of this population very healthy. You could argue we don't need extra people here right now if, in fact, they can get their instruction online.
I doubt that the court will hear that argument. There's no question but that the president has the authority to make this decision. The question is, did he make it properly, and are people harmed by it? That's what the court will examine. If you want my gut reaction, yes. Harvard and MIT will lose. Harvard and MIT, I think, will lose. That's not to say they ought to lose, but I think they will under the state of the law.
Judge Napolitano, great to see you. Thanks so much.